that, I mean, it's always important to consider that a play is written for performance, hence our particular interest in all the stagecraft, which means whatever the playwright uses and devices for the ongoing of the play on the stage. Hence, we need to take into consideration elements of setting, lighting effects, sound effects, and also stage properties, as we call the props. The props are or any object that is added to the stage in terms of furniture, clothes, objects, and so on. Okay. Now, last time we put focus on the stage direction, the long stage direction that precedes the play. And we said that we focused on what furnishes this apartment mostly, and the living conditions of these young people. Okay? And out of this long stage direction, we can already situate the characters of the play in a particular context, if not in a particular social context. Okay, being I mean stuck in an attic room. An attic room, we said that it cannot be the kind of dwelling that the wealthy will live in. Okay, we can already situate these young people out of sight from the upper class culture, which means it's very important to consider the place where they live, the attic room, the attic being the highest level of a house, a Victorian house, also the kind of dwelling that is rather, let's say, reserved for a category of people, let's say working class people or low category of people. But also symbolically, these people are out of sight from the upper class, exactly, which means they cannot be seen. We saw in the description of the room, of the flat, of the one-room flat, how much little opening onto the outside world there is. There isn't much opening, and lighting comes only from a kind of oblique window that opens to the sky. Asma, you cut your microphone so that we eliminate all background sound. Hey, someone is having a double conversation. I don't know what. I please, you are kindly required to interrupt the microphone. Okay?
Lujane, could you please close your mic?
Okay, yes. Sorry.
You can activate your cameras, but not your mics. Okay? Because if you keep your microphones, open, we will hear all background sounds. Is that clear? I don't mind if you leave your the camera activated. So we said that our first examination of this one-room flat, it has many implications. Not only does it, insinuate a social category that does not enjoy the luxury of living in, a big house with more appliances, with more, comfortable conditions, but also it excludes these people from the sight of the upper class. They are out of sight of the upper class. By implication, if they are taken away from, taken out of sight of the sight or excluded from, the upper class, they are out of sight from the upper class culture. What does this mean? Does it mean that they will be that their protests and that their requirements will be heard by these people, will be considered by the upper class? What does it mean? What does it imply that they are out of sight?
That maybe it means that they are considered unimportant in society.
Ignored. Also ignored, okay? Ignored by the upper class. In other words, there is the idea of exclusion. I mean, these people are isolated, excluded in their one-room flat, okay? But also considering the introduction of the characters, the way considering also the activities they are involved in, the opening scene also, at least the stage direction, something that will be confirmed in the opening scene. It uses, a representation that is biased, that is based on gender references. What do you mean by gender references? Do you remember what the characters they were busy doing? What's Alison doing, and what are Jimmy and Pete doing?
Reading newspapers.
The women are ironing the clothes.
Yes,
And
the women ironing the clothes, and the men were reading newspapers, which is very common.
Very stereotypical. The opening scene, it presents to us a stereotype that is gender based. Okay. In other words, the opening scene, it uses a stereotypical gender reference to define the characters, which means the characters are defined according to stereotypes, gender stereotypes. Which stereotypes say that women are involved in, domestic tasks, and men are involved in, let's say, intellectual activities. The opening scene is very stereotypical in that the two men are reading newspapers. Meanwhile, the lady is doing the ironing. Is that clear? So this stereotypical, I think this stereotypical presentation, it already suggests a mood in the play, or at least, what do you mean by a mood in literature? What can be the mood in literature? What can be the style in literature? The mood can be dark, it can be ironic, it can be joyful, and so on. Now, if we consider that the characters are young men, rebellious young men, because these are the angry young men of the 1950s, angry with society, with politics, with the British culture. Is that clear? But, or paradoxically, they still function on a basis of conventionality. They are conventional. They are stereotypical, because they are shown in a very stereotypical situation where the men are reading papers and smoking pipes, and the woman is ironing. I think this contradiction between action and attitude, it already suggests some irony in the play. Is that clear? You have to feel it, because being in rebellion, or when you revolt against an established structure, the least thing is to show, to exhibit some modernity in your mind. Does the first depiction, does it suggest modernity in these young people life? Do you feel any modernity?
No.
No. On the contrary, the image, the depiction is rather stereotypical and conventional, basic, conventional, classical. in keeping with conservative, culture and etc. Okay. Now, last time also we saw that the play opens in April. Paradoxically, April, is a season that should evoke life and hope and fertility and etc. But here, considering the context of the play, it's rather the opposite. Okay, it's the play's atmosphere is rather gloomy, is rather dark. There is much monotony. There is much dullness coming out of this atmosphere, coming out of this setting. When you read the play, there are many references to. Yes. There are many references to T.S. Eliot. Later we will come across these references. T.S. Eliot is one who condemned, the world for, for its the modernity, for being a source of loss, being a source of failure, and so on. So there is both. There is a mixture. In the same way, there is a mixture of youth, but also of lack of modernity. There is a mixture of hope, but also of loss and despair. What's the term in literature that is very much appropriate to these pairs of opposite ideas? What do we call these? What do we call these?
Paradox.
Dichotomies. The play is full of dichotomies. It's a paradox, but when you have pairs of either opposite words or opposite ideals or opposite, notions, we talk about dichotomies. I think it's very interesting to perceive these dichotomies from the outset. Okay, these dichotomies here are omnipresent in the play, and I think the title itself it settles the idea of dichotomy in the mind of the reader or in the mind of the audience, because you have Look Back in Anger, or it's a matter of the angry young man. The play, it is a play of the angry young man. Exactly. Normally we attribute, we associate youth with hope, with life, etc. But here youth is associated with anger and with helplessness. You see how much the action of the play also is governed by a kind of passivity, a kind of, last time we used the term slothfulness, laziness, inactiveness. Exactly. You must feel that when you read the play, that the characters are rather inactive, that they are rather lazy and passive. They represent the category of people who are intellectually in extreme rebellion, but on the practical level, theoretically speaking, they are very rebellious in their mind. They are very anti-conventions, but in practice, they do nothing. They do nothing to change their conditions, or they do nothing to move forward. Okay. Last time we focused on the furniture, and we said that the room is filled with old furniture, pieces of worn clothes, newspapers that are half read. Okay, all this is representative of the character's lifestyle. You see how the stage props, the props or the stage properties here, they represent the character's lifestyle. Okay, which means, like these pieces of furniture, like these old clothes or worn clothes, like these newspapers that are everywhere half read, those characters namely the three of them, Cliff, Jimmy, and Allison, they have literally been entrapped in this attic and strictly out of the sight of the upper class culture. Of course, I mean, there is one reason, I mean, also, their ideals, their emotions, they do not fit with the upper class. They do not fit with the upper class. But also, when we examine these characters closely, we become aware of the trappings of a poor domestic life. The scene is a domestic scene. Understand what you mean, a domestic scene? Domestic scene, it's a scene which takes place in a house, and when the characters, the actors, are engaged in everyday life activities like doing the cooking or doing housework chores or reading papers and so on. And the scene is a domestic scene, but the setting here, it helps us perceive the kind of domestic life. It is really one that does not announce, I mean, hope, one that does not insinuate, I mean, optimism and possibilities for enjoyment and pleasure. Okay. Now, we are going to look at the beginning of the play. I hope you all have your copy. Okay. So, normally we will be considering, having examined the stage direction in depth, we will be starting with the opening, I mean, of Act 1. Okay. Act 1, which does not divide into scenes. As you know, the play divides into 3 acts. Act 1, and then Act 2 divides into 2 scenes, and Act 3 divides into 2 scenes. Later, as we move forward, we will discuss the division of the play into acts and the contribution of such division to the development of plot and so on. Okay. Now, so the Act 1, it opens with a conversation between Jimmy, Cliff, and Allison, the characters, the actors who take over most of the action of the play. Okay, we will see, we will learn how to decode meaning out of words and out of literary devices. You know, in literature, in order to build that meaning, you have to read closely. And there are devices that help you progressively build that meaning. Among the most useful devices is repetition. Whatever is kept repeated, either in poetry or in drama or in fictional text, whatever is kept repeated, it must be a source of information. Let's say what Jimmy says first. Why do I do this every Sunday? Even the book reviews seem to be the same as last week's. Different books, same reviews. Have you finished that one yet? So what do you notice in this first utterance? What's the emphasis on? Is there something, an idea or an element?
Monotony.
Monotony.
Yes,
good.
a routine.
How do you feel monotony? How is monotony expressed? How does the character reveal the monotony of life? When the action is
by the word every.
Every Sunday, the same and same.
He complains about his routine. He complains about his routine.
Yes, it's very interesting to consider that the opening lines, the first utterances, what do they insinuate? They insinuate monotony, and the characters complained about this monotony. Why do I do this every Sunday? Even the book reviews seem to be the same, and the last weeks, different books, but same reviews. So monotony, it's what is announced first. Okay, have you finished that one yet? Not yet. Jimmy, I've just read 3 whole columns on the English novel. Half of it's in French. Do the Sunday papers make you feel ignorant? Now, yes, it means that these people are very much immersed in the reading of newspapers. But at the same time, there is criticism of these papers. Okay, I've just read 3 whole columns on the English novel, but half of it's in French. Do the Sunday papers make you feel ignorant? What about the Sunday paper? What's the meaning of do they make you feel ignorant? Does it? I mean, is it a positive reference to the Sunday papers or a negative one? Do the
Negative one.
Yes. Whereas papers or newspapers should be a source of knowledge and a source of.
It's all negative.
Yes, it's all negative, which means here the second complaint it is about the quality of the papers. Is that clear? It's very interesting to see whenever Jimmy makes an utterance, it is to utter a complaint. Is that clear? Okay. So if ever you were in an essay to comment on the mood of Jimmy, it's very easy to identify such devices in the text where on the first level, he expresses monotony or his complaint about monotony, and then he seems to, on the second level, he seems to complain about the quality of the papers. Papers that they make you feel ignorant. Jimmy again, well, you are ignorant. You're just a peasant. To Alison, what about you? You're not a peasant, are you? And Alison, what's that? Jimmy, I said do the papers make you feel you're not so brilliant after all? Alison, oh, I haven't read them yet. I didn't ask you that, I said. Leave the poor girl alone, she's busy. Jimmy, well, she can't talk, can't she? You can talk, can't you? You can express an opinion. Or does the white woman's burden make it impossible to this? Many, implications already arise from this very quick exchange between the characters. First of all, Jimmy's angry mood is very easily detectable. Is that clear? His angry mood is first manifested through complaint. Is that clear? And then through his critical attitude towards his friend and his wife. Is that clear? Okay. In other words, Jimmy is one who is very much negative.
He's a prototype of the husband.
He is a prototype of what? Sorry.
Of traditional. He is a prototype of the traditional husband who always underestimate his wife.
Yes. Hence his misogynistic attitude. Last time I talked about some misogyny in the play. We said that the male characters are very misogynistic. Misogyny, it means when you are extremely segregated against women. When you underestimate women, when you look at women as inferior, and when you constantly offend women and address women with insulting, words and diminishing words. Here is a prototype of a misogynistic man. Is that clear? If you don't know how to spell the word misogyny, I can do it. If not, you can very quickly check this. But it's a term we'll need very often in our perception of the characters in the play. Is that clear? Okay. So You are ignorant, you're just a peasant, to Alison. Of course, I mean, we have already said something about Alison's origin and social belonging. We said that Alison comes from an upper class. She's from an aristocratic milieu, and unlike her husband and his friend, who are from the working class. Is that clear? So here, it's very interesting to notice how Jimmy is intentionally hurting Alison. This kind of being inferior, if we can use the word inferior, I mean socially inferior to Alison. He can only, I mean, show superiority or exercise authority through a kind of violent language or aggressive language. Okay, so here it's very interesting to see how the functioning in this couple is very much stereotypical as well. We should not expect such a conventional model, such a stereotypical model. As you said, he is stereotypical of the conventional model. The man underestimates his wife, and the wife, she surrenders also. She accepts. Is that clear? She does not manifest any objection to his statements, to his offensive statements. Okay. He's even being, I mean, arrogant with his friends. Huh? What's yes, Cliff's response? How does Cliff respond? And that immediately establishes the role Cliff will play in the play regarding Alison. How does he appear here?
To defend, to
as a defender, as a protector, as a defender, as a protector. Huh?
Yeah.
Cliff will play the role of the
and as a friend also.
Yes.
As a friend for Alison.
As a friend for Alison, though he is
that she needs.
Another contradiction in the play. Cliff is Jimmy's friend, and you see how the position of Cliff oscillates between being close to Jimmy, as he shares, I mean, his tasks, reading newspapers, smoking, seated in the same position. Last time we saw how they are shown seated in symmetrical chairs, having the same position, reading papers, smoking. I mean, depicted as almost identical, but on the apparent level, but on another level, he seems close to Alison, and he would rather act as a protector to Alison, thus standing against Jimmy. Another contradiction where Cliff is his position is not clear whether he supports his friend or he supports Alison. Okay, so it's very interesting to see how yes, leave the poor girlie alone. She's busy. What do you get out of this poor girlie alone? Do you think that Cliff, unlike Jimmy, holds feminist views or feminist attitudes? What do you think he's
a little bit misogynist also?
He's misogynistic also, but his misogyny is not as direct as explicit. Is that clear? You understand the word explicit?
Yes.
Which means openly expressed as his friends. The poor girlie is very undermining also. For him, she's a woman, she's a poor girlie, she's busy. Well, she can't talk. And then Jimmy, when she can talk, can't she? You can talk, can't you? You can express an opinion. By implication, don't speak on behalf of that woman. In other words, Jimmy would not really like his friend to oppose him for the mere sake of protecting Alison. Now, it's very interesting. I have identified a series of words here which are kept repeated. First of all, whenever Cliff talks about Alison, he uses the word alone quite many times. So here, Cliff, for example, leave the poor girlie alone, she's busy. A few lines later, Cliff, leave her alone, I said, okay? And a few lines later, Cliff kicking out at him from behind his paper, leave her alone, I said. What do you get out of this? À force de répéter, by repeating the word alone, 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 what effect would this have on Alison? What's the repetition of the term alone? What's the idea behind it? What effect does it have on the position of Alison in this place, in this house, in the domestic life?
She's on her own.
She's on her own. She's isolated. She's isolated.
She's lonely.
She's lonely. Yes. So what's the paradox here? What's the contradiction?
She lives with two men, but she's still alone.
She's physically in the company of two men, but she's very lonely. She's very lonely. There is a difference between alone and lonely.
It's better to stay alone.
Yes, she is alone. But here, I think, unconsciously, Cliff, while he seeks ways to protect Alison, is that clear? He further alienates her and isolates her from this company. Is that clear? You see the discrepancy? En même temps, هو يحب يحميها, mais en même temps, il accentue son isolement. He accentuates, he heightens her alienation, her isolation. Leave her alone, leave her alone, leave her alone. Is that clear? Which is still misogynistic, which means the women should be excluded. I mean, leave her alone. She's busy doing her task, and leave her doing this task right quietly. Is that clear? In other words, it's very interesting here to perceive the interactions between the male characters, and how while one explicitly shows or seeks ways to show, I mean, superiority or authority over the female species, the other, though or despite his willingness to stand next to the woman, to support the woman, or to protect the woman, he manifests, negative attitudes towards the women, to that woman, or misogynistic, stand towards that woman. Okay, it's very interesting to see. Yes.
This also represents women's situation at that time. I mean, no one seems to defend her or to fight for her rules, for her rights. But also, some may have some sympathetic attitudes toward her situation, but they also don't seem to talk about it.
Yes, good, yes. Which means we are in a phase where young people, they feel that need for rebellion, for change, and to exhibit their angry mood. Is that clear? But the position of women, or the status of women, does not seem central in their rebellion, or does not seem, primary importance in the rebellion. Exactly. We are in a period where women are still highly segregated. Even in the Western world, in a European context, they are still highly, under estimated. Okay, which further excludes and isolates the woman. I mean, being not really, understood by the male, the two men surrounding her. A husband who is just arrogant and angry and explicitly exhibiting misogynistic words and misogynistic attitudes, and at the same time, though seemingly protected by a friend, that friend still also fails to be really supportive. I mean, Jim, though he tries to be supportive to Alison, he's not that supportive in his role because the attitude is still biased against women. Yes. So there is, out of the repetition here, we have detected monotony. Is that clear? I'm from the beginning, I'm trying to get you trained to how to illustrate ideas in an essay. Is that clear? Okay. The characters, language and attitude, they convey monotony. Monotony is perceived through the repetition of words or activities that are repeated on a daily basis, on a regular basis, which leads to monotony. When you keep doing the same thing again and again and again, it becomes monotonous. The male characters exhibit a kind of ill treatment or misogyny regarding the woman who herself doesn't do much to defend herself also, or to change direction in this context. Okay, there is another idea that derives that emerges out of this first section. It is the idea of laziness and inactiveness and passivity and slothfulness. Slothful and lazy being synonyms here. Yes. I'm trying to guide you. That's on page 11, starting from Jimmy's utterance after Alison's words. After Alison's words, yes, leave her alone. Jimmy shouting, "All right, dear, go back to sleep." No, even before that. Alison, I am sorry, I wasn't listening properly. I have to find that. Alison, I'm sorry. Yes, almost in the middle of page 11. I'm sorry, I wasn't listening properly. What's the meaning of this utterance coming from Alison? While both male debate about her case, is that clear? While both of them put at the center of their exchange, of their argument, Alison does not listen properly. I was not listening properly. It suggests what? It evokes what to you? That she was not listening properly.
That she is uninterested in
yes,
what they have to say.
She doesn't care, yes. She's not interested. She doesn't care about her husband's attitude, which is very negative, which is to blame. She doesn't even care about Jimmy or Cliff trying hard to, maybe
there is a lack of enthusiasm.
Good. It's the word enthusiasm that I wanted to hear. There is no enthusiasm. She doesn't display any enthusiasm. You understand the word enthusiasm? when you are enthusiastic,
The
about
lack of respect.
lack of interest, lack of willingness, il n'y a aucune envie, aucune volonté. She lacks the enthusiasm to change her a lot, to improve her condition. It is a first manifestation of passivity, of inactiveness, of slothfulness also. I wasn't listening properly. Jimmy, you bet you weren't listening. Old Porter talks and everyone turns over and goes to sleep. And Mrs. Porter gets them all going with the first yawn. When you talk and people yawn and go to sleep, it means what you say is annoying, is boring. Is that clear? Which means indirectly Jimmy is accusing his friend of being boring, of being annoying him with his talk. Okay. So it's very interesting to perceive the tension. The action of the play opens on a ground of tension between the male characters, and the tension is mostly triggered by Jimmy. Is that clear? By Jimmy, which tension is provokes Cliff. It is provocative to Cliff, but not really to Alison. Alison does not seem moved or concerned by this tension, or even interested in what seems to happen around her. Is that clear? In other words, she's in a state of indifference. Okay? She's not enthusiastic, or she is indifferent. And from now on, you will see how often the word sleep, yawn, sleep is repeated. Again, shouting, Jimmy, all right, dear, go back to sleep. It was only me talking, talking. Remember, I'm sorry. Cliff, stop yelling. I'm trying to read, etc. So, the other attitude that is displayed in the text, indifference, lack of enthusiasm, passivity. Is that clear? Okay? There is another set of words in this text which also, bring about another attitude. If we consider the recurrence, the repetition of the words read and talk, but also stop yelling, but also a bit later, Cliff, yes, and uneducated, now shut up, will you? Why don't you get my wife to explain it to you? She's educated. That's right, isn't it? What's the problem here? In what way do these terms, reflect
reflects the feeling of Jimmy Porter to the upper class?
Yes.
Who was represented by Alison.
His wife. Yes. So, in other words, the terms shut up and stop yelling and so on, they denote the anger, the angry mood of the characters, the two of them. Is that clear? But because talk is about Alison, who is who embodies a category, a social class, a social category, she might be the source, or the social category might be the source of their anger. Is that clear? So Jimmy's anger is here justified by his, the distance between him and the upper class, the upper culture. Is that clear? And if he is so much delicate towards his wife, because his wife is an embodiment of this upper class. Is that clear? So the recurrent blaming, or the recurrent, insults he addresses his wife with, they are directly addressed to a category of people, to a social category. that of the wealthy, that of the upper class. So there is anger, and there is, a deep need, an urgent need to express this anger. Hence, the constant repetitions of the word talk and speak and read and explain. If you gather all these words, they belong to the same lexical field, which is that of expression, of expressing through words. Is that clear? So what Jimmy seeks here, he seeks to express his anger. But rather than, for example, writing reports or addressing, a category of people that seems to bother him, he expresses his anger towards his wife. His wife being an embodiment of this upper class. It's something that justifies all the arrogant words or the insult that she gets from her husband. Is that clear up to here?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Why don't you get my wife to explain it to you? She's educated to her. That's right, isn't it? Kicking out at him from behind his paper. Leave her alone, I said. Do that again, you Welsh ruffian, and I'll pull your ears off. So you see how much there is verbal violence. Shut up, stop yelling, I'll pull your ears off. All these are also the same category of statements is recurrent in the text. A few lines later, for example, and that's on page 12. That's on page 12. Yes. We can hear Jimmy still. He's a bloody pig. Yes. A few pages later, it's a lovely, delicious paw you've got. I'm going to bite it off. There are many revelations here that lead us to think of Jimmy as one who acts instinctively. Okay, I'm going to ask you to go to page 12. Okay.
Teacher?
Yes.
We are following from the booklet, so the pages are not the same with
Same.
the book you have.
Let me bring the booklet. Okay. I thought it was the same version. Okay, sorry.
It's page 10.
Huh?
I guess it's page 10.
No, it's page 4, sorry. Go to page 4 then.
Perhaps it would be more efficient if we follow the document, the representation. If you have the document on your PC, we can follow all together from the presentation.
Maybe in the future I'll try to scan the text and put it, show to you on the board. Something I haven't had the time to do because I have. But anyway, can you consider page 4 on your booklet? I think it's the same as before.
Follow the numbers in the columns or in the pages because there are numbers. The
numbers added by.
There is another number, 4 and 5.
4 and 5, that's it, and 6 in the middle. Okay.
Okay.
Yes, You go to the left-hand side column where you have page 4. Okay? There is an important, section which later will justify Jimmy's misogynistic attitudes. Yes. Oh no, not already. He's a bloody pig. Jimmy, I'm not a pig. I just like food, that's all. Okay, is that clear? Can you see that?
Yes, we're following.
Yes.
Yes. Like it. Like it. Okay, like it. You're like a sexual maniac. Only with you it's food. Normally, we already hear bringing to mind two of the most instinctive instincts, elementary instincts, the sexual instinct and the that of hunger. Is that clear? You
Yes.
like a sexual maniac. Only with you it's food. Okay, and then we move on to Jimmy. Jimmy, oh yes, yes, I like to eat. I'd like to live too. Do you mind? Cliff, don't see any use in your eating at all. You never get any fatter. Okay? This emphatic, references to hunger. 2 lines earlier, Jimmy explains, I'm getting hungry. So there is an emphatic, reference to hunger, to food, to eating food. I like to eat. I'd like to live too. And then to the sexual addiction. What do these references tell you about Jimmy?
It was references to the period during this time.
What do you mean by the reference to this period?
The situation
It's
of people during, after the First World War.
Now, what kind of man is Jimmy? When one live on instincts, like animals, to
He
eat.
is a primitive man.
He's a primitive man. Jimmy is depicted from an animalistic perspective here. He's assimilated to an animal, and therefore distanced from the human species, the human category. Okay, you're like a sexual maniac. Only with you, it's food. You are a sexual maniac, and only with you, it's food. Like animals, they eat and they have, sexual interactions for procreation, and their lives are reduced to this. And animals, they do not think, they do not work, they do not create, etc. They are Jimmy
It's
is
also a reference to the working class.
to the nature, I think, on the first level, to the nature of Jimmy, a man of instinct, a man of who's primitive in his mind. Is that clear? A man who has not evolved in his mind, a man who has not, acquired modernity.
Prototype of he is a prototype of one of the working class who only
Yes,
has instinctive to feel, but he does not work to be as the working class, only working but not being rich.
Yes. In other words,
He has not a mind to think to be rich.
There are many angles we could consider this from. Working class, it's not, let's make it clear, we are not blaming the working class, but their living conditions reduce them to this category of people. Is that clear? They live, they work in order to eat, to survive, in other words. And the only pleasure they can enjoy in life, the only thing they can enjoy in life, it is to have sexual intercourse with their wives or with other people, exactly. Which means this life is reduced here to these two basic elementary activities, instinctive activities, as if men here can enjoy nothing or does enjoy nothing apart from food and sex. This is double-edged. On the one hand, it shows Jimmy's animalistic, primitive side. Is that clear? If you are primitive, if you are animalistic, it justifies your misogyny. You cannot be delicate towards women. You cannot treat women equally. You cannot show openness to women and acknowledge their skills and their abilities and so on. Second, as you said, it is an illustration of the working class life, where the human being is reduced to these activities. Okay, considering the wages or considering the living condition, they cannot really allow other pleasures in life or other activities in life. Exactly. Don't see any use in your eating at all. You never get any fatter. People like me don't get fat. I've tried to tell you before. We just burn everything up. Now shut up while I read. You can make me some more tea. Of course, you see how the passage alternates. Okay, Jimmy's or Cliff's accusation, of Jimmy, and Jimmy does, if you want, responses, they do confirm Cliff's attitude. Considering the language he uses, consider the verbal violence he displays, he can only be in keeping with Cliff's judgment. Is that clear? Which means also Jimmy does nothing to contradict the judgments made by Cliff. Okay. A few lines later, Jimmy explains, "I'm the only one who knows how to treat a paper or anything else in this house." What do you get out of this? I'm the only one who knows how to treat a paper or anything else in this house. Picks up another paper. Girl here wants to know whether her boyfriend will lose all respect for her if she gives him what he asks for. Stupid bitch. What does, what's Jimmy's, talk? What does it manifest here? What does it suggest to you?
He thinks he's superior from everyone. He's more intelligent, and he has the priority on them.
He is very much ego-centered, self-centered. He's self-centered, okay? And then he still underestimates women. Girl here, not my Alison, girl here wants to know whether her boyfriend will lose all respect for her if she gives him what he asks for. Stupid bitch. He's referring to a girl, of course, a news he gets in the paper here, but he is making allusion maybe to Alison. In the play, we often see Cliff very close to Alison, and sometimes their closeness leads them to, to have a kind of enigmatic relationship, much physical proximity, and so on. Exactly, which might, expose them to a kind of love between them and maybe physical. It might provoke suspicion among readers or Jimmy as well. Okay, so here it's very interesting to see how he treats the girl. Maybe he's reading about a fact in the paper. Girl here wants to know whether her boyfriend will lose all respect for her if she gives him what he asks for. Stupid bitch. It's very interesting to see, I mean, Jimmy's treatment of girls. Treating a girl as a bitch. You know what a bitch is? Or prostitute, okay? And what, I mean, it's full of sexual connotations and full of sexual, I mean, insinuation. In other words, it's all part of Jimmy's misogynistic view of women. Also, when you are misogynistic, you view women as an object, but also as a sexual object. Is that clear? So there are many references in the text which put in the foreground Jimmy's.
Please.
Sorry?
Can you repeat the last point, please?
Yes.
Okay.
Jimmy's treatment of girls is full of sexual connotations. Okay, the girl, if she gives him what he wants, which means she offers her body, he will lose respect for her, and then calling her stupid bitch. All these terms, all these, I mean, attitudes towards women, they come to confirm, I mean, his misogynistic attitude. You are misogynistic when you look at women from this perspective, which means the one that places a woman as an object. Is that clear? A mere object, a mere sexual object. Is that clear? So this is why, I mean, Jimmy keeps undermining his wife, underestimating his wife, because he looks at his wife from one perspective, one single perspective, that she is a woman, inferior to men. Whether, even if she comes from an upper class, even if she is uneducated, we learn from him from time to time that she is educated, that she is from an upper class. Despite all this, he keeps undermining his wife. But his thoughts and his reflections, his words, they all suggest his misogynistic attitude, his misogynistic stance. His misogyny is manifested through many levels in the text, that he, I mean, uses kind of language that is violent, that is vulgar, first. Second, that he treats women as objects, as sexual objects, as objects for desire. It is also what adds to his misogynistic attitude. But from time to time, Jimmy is trying to display his knowledge, his ability to read, as you said, to exercise authority, to show his superiority. Exactly. Superiority, of course, over his wife, but over also other people. I think Jimmy is one who suffers a complex of inferiority, which he tries to compensate for by reading papers, by reading newspapers. Is that clear? As if reading newspapers is the only one thing possible or accessible to him. That also enables him to prove himself or to show something positive with him. It's a quality that he tries to emphasize.
I have a question.
Yes?
Can we say that Jimmy's way of trying to look superior and trying to make them feel weak and everything is an attempt to fill this gap of his feeling that he's not worth it, since his wife is a member of the upper class.
Yeah.
Like, is
Yeah.
this a pathetic way to try to make himself feel better or to comfort
Yes,
himself?
it's an attempt to make himself feel better, to compensate for his, to compensate for his inferiority, if you can use the word inferiority. I mean, on a social level, he is lower than Alison. Okay, so I mean, what he's trying to do is to compensate or to fill this gap that distances him from the upper class. Okay. A few minutes ago, I told you about Jimmy's relationship with Alison, which is susceptible and which might provoke, suspicion and doubt. Look at how he treats Alison. Yes, let me find this on the text. Alison, all right, thank you, dear. It's after Alison saying, Alison, thank you, dear. Oh, I have 3 different versions in front of me. This is why I find it difficult to cope. Yes, I'm the only one who read the exchange. Yes, that's on page 6, left-hand side column. Okay. So if you move to page 6, yes, on top of page 6. Yes, okay. Alison, all right, thank you, dear. Cliff, grasping her hand. Why don't you leave all that and sit down for a bit? You look tired. Alison, smiling, I haven't much more to do. It's very interesting to consider the stage directions, which means the information between brackets here, okay? The exchange between Cliff and Alison. Cliff grasping her hand, which shows care and attention, of course, an affectionate gesture. Alison, smiling, I haven't much more to do. Cliff kisses her hand and puts her fingers in his mouth. Huh? She's a beautiful girl, isn't she? Of course, addressing Jimmy. Jimmy, that's what they all tell me. His eyes meet hers. Cliff, it's a lovely, delicious paw you've got. I'm going to bite it off. You know what a paw is? A paw? A paw is, you know the animal, the bear? Bear?
Yes.
We for the animal we do not use the word foot. We use the paw, la patte de l'ours. D'accord? Bon. This exchange is full of connotations. These very few lines could set the ground for a long essay. First level, what do you think of the relationship between Alison and Cliff? The one who seems to be her protector at the beginning, he's protection develops into more affectionate. Okay.
I think he's flirting with her.
Huh?
I think he's trying to flirt with her, like he's giving her compliments and he's always there for her.
Yes, this is what remains enigmatic in the play. It is Cliff's relationship with Alison. Okay, he goes beyond.
I think love story.
It's physical. The interaction is very physical. It overpasses friendship, if you want. Okay, so there is an exchange of tactile, if you want, contact, the hands, the smile, and so on. It's like as if you were flirting with Alison. It's a flirt, if you want. But what is striking it is Jimmy's reaction. Is not moved by this interaction. Is that clear? That's what they all tell me. She's a beautiful girl, isn't she? That's what they all tell me. That's what they all tell me. What do you expect Jimmy to do here, or how do you expect him to react in the presence of such an exchange between his wife and his friend?
Jealous.
Jealousy, anger. He's indifferent.
Anger.
Yes.
But
he's angry at everything.
So different.
He is not moved by this exchange, by this interaction. Is that clear? First.
Maybe there is a lack of desire and jealousy.
Yes, if there is no jealousy, it means there is no love. Okay? If he is not moved by this scene, it means that he's indifferent to his wife. So indifference, becomes a very, recurrent issue in this context. Okay. Alison is indifferent to Jimmy's anger. Jimmy is indifferent to Alison's flirt with Cliff. Indifference seems a predominant mood. Is that clear? Okay. But more than that. Cliff now, it's a lovely, delicious paw you've got. I'm going to bite it off. Who does he look like now as he makes this, through his attitude towards...
Should done by a
few minutes ago, Cliff was accusing his friend for being a sexual maniac and concerned with food only. Is that clear? Which means almost condemning his primitivism and animalistic stand. And now he is repeating the same. He is acting, or he is assuming the same criticism as addressed to his friend. He's as he addresses Alison, as he addresses a woman, he takes her hand for a paw, and I'm going to bite it. It's like an animal, also an animal chasing another prey, or is that clear? Okay. So it's very interesting to see once again misogyny and is revealed, whereas it could be the subject of an essay, misogyny in the text, whereas Jimmy's misogyny is explicit, is direct. Is that clear? And you have the tools to illustrate it, the terms he addresses his wife with. Jimmy's misogyny is implicit, is indirect. Is that he, in most cases, okay, he is in keeping, in agreement with his friend Jimmy. He behaves like his friend. He seems to reproduce Jimmy's attitudes. Is that clear? Which means he is not that different from his friend. He's not that distant from his friend. Something that further alienates Alison and puts Alison in a position of isolation. If we remember how often Cliff keeps repeating, leave her alone, leave her alone, leave her alone. Is that so? She seems alienated from the two men. So the conclusion here, though Jimmy shows more understanding or seems to sympathize with Alison more than her husband does, he seems to protect, or he shows willingness to protect Alison. He shares Jimmy's attitudes towards women. In that, he looks at women from the same angle as his friends. The woman is there for temptation, for desire, and she's but an object of desire, sexual desire. Okay. In other words, and then give her finger back and don't be so sickening. Letting go of Alison. Oh, it says here that he makes a very moving appeal to all Christians to do all they can to assist. About an article, we do not have the time to comment on it. Jimmy, yes, well, that's quite moving, I suppose. Are you moved, my darling? Well, naturally, and so on. The last sentence that concludes this section is the stage direction, which is very interesting. Still, I'm a bit lost. I have to find it to conclude. Yes. The last line of page 6. He looks up at both of them for reaction, but Cliff is reading and Alison is intent on her ironing. This is the kind of statement that could already lead us to talk about the structure of the play, which is a circular structure. What do you mean by a circular structure? A circular structure, it is the kind of play or novel where the characters do not seem to move or to develop. I mean, when the characters are not, they are static. Here we have an illustration of static characters, which means after all this argument, we can talk about an argument, a common a disagreement throughout this act at the beginning, an exchange between Jimmy, Alison, Cliff, where they seem to debate different issues. Okay, the section ends with the stage direction. He looks at both of them for reaction, but there is no reaction. Cliff is reading and Alison is intent on her ironing, which means the characters are still depicted repeating the same activities, the same chores as at the beginning of the act. Alison is still intent on her ironing and Cliff is still reading. Is that clear? What do you expect these characters? Do you expect these characters to develop? Do you expect these characters to come out of their monotony. We expect them to challenge their conditions or no.
They are the same.
I don't think they will do that.
Yes, we don't think they will do that.
Because she's a weak person. She has a weak personality, and she's not strong enough to fight or to disagree with him or to stop him.
Yes, also that they are stuck to their initial activities. Is that clear?
After all, angry of after all the anger of Jimmy Porter, there is not change. There is lack of desire or a lack of motivation.
There is no motivation. Yes. And that the playwright decides to close this section to, depicting these characters doing the same tasks, repeating the same task, perpetuating the same task. It means that they are kept in this monotony and then they do nothing to get out of it. Is that clear? The monotony that is announced at the beginning of the play is, there. Moreover, besides the characters, they do nothing. They do nothing to come out of this monotony. Hence, the laziness, the passivity, the slothfulness of the characters. And this is something that young people, despite their anger, despite their rebellion, do not seem to overcome or do not seem to change. There is a kind of determinism also. I don't know whether you studied determinism, a kind of determinism. It's a doctrine that is inspired by the Darwinian thought. Darwinian thought, which states that if you are born poor, you will remain poor. You are determined to stay poor. Okay, you will never be able to change your condition. It is something that comes out of despair. And in the 1950s, in a war period following the Second World War, it's the ideal setting for an expression of this kind. Exactly. When you do not see any improvement, you do not expect or society to do anything for the better or to change your condition. Okay. Okay. So that was our first contact with the text. We will try to move on, but you will see in most cases these are the issue most debated in the play. The character's anger, the man's misogynistic attitude, the distance between the lower class and the upper class, indifference, a prevalent mood, and difference is, it's not only proper to Jimmy and to Cliff, but also to Alison. But she is intent on her ironing. It means that she turns her back to all these debates and to the. She doesn't seem to seek any solution for the conflict that prevails in her domestic life. Okay. Okay. Thank you for attending this class. I might ask you to join the other group next week. You just follow the appointed invitation. Okay.
Thank you, Miss.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Okay, thank you.